Hi everyone, Paul from Lightbox Architecture. Today's video I wanted to talk to everybody about underfloor heating and flowing screed and how that works for your project. So today I've got on Simon Wilson from Self Build Floors.
Hello.
And we're going to chat about everything that is underfloor heating and some of the myths that, around that. So Simon, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Simon Wilson. Myself and my business partner run a business called Self Build and Contract Floors Limited, and we supply and install underfloor heating systems and flowing screeds for people building their own properties and for small builders.
And you're pretty much around the country, so you're almost UK.
Yeah, I mean it's closed down a little bit, so we probably run sort of from London to Leeds, that sort of area really.
Okay. So I guess first question then is, what is underfloor heating and screed, and how does that fit into a client's project?
Okay, well, underfloor heating is very simple. It's just hot water pumped through a floor to create a heat source for your property. It's effectively turning your floor into a big radiator rather than having a little radiator on the wall.
Right, okay, so that in essence then we're replacing what we traditionally have in most properties as radiators fixed on the wall that come straight from the boiler, and instead of having those radiators fixed on the wall, we're now putting them in the floor, in your floor slab. Exactly. Which effectively you're already constructing as part of your build.
Yeah, exactly that. Your screed element, if you imagine you've got a concrete subfloor, an insulation layer and then a screed element, that screed element's always going to be there. So all you're doing is introducing an underfloor heating pipe into that screed.
Which is, I think, is more cost effective when whether it's an extension, a new build, a renovation project. I just think it's more cost effective to put that pipe work in at that point when you're already doing that job effectively.
If you're in a new build situation, very much so, new build or extension situation, you're doing that anyway. To put the underfloor heating pipe in, I'd suggest is a pretty small cost.
Yeah. Well, I've done my underfloor heating and I found
You've done it?
Yeah, so...
Do you mean I've done it?
You've done it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a pretty good job, to be fair.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, when we looked at it, it was a case of the extra cost of the actual underfloor heating pipe work was minimal really to the cost of what we were building when we were putting the whole floor slab in and the screed and everything else with it. So
yeah, I mean underfloor heating is enjoying its renaissance, or has been certainly over the last 10 years, because insulation values have grown massively in properties. And if you wanted underfloor heating in a house 15 years ago, you would have to buy the insulation layer as a cost of the underfloor heating, whereas now the insulation layer is a cost of the build.
Yeah.
So the underfloor heating is a standalone cost, if that makes sense.
So it becomes more accessible now, time's moved on a little bit. So.
Definitely.
Okay, so I guess then leads on to the question of what's the benefits then of having underfloor heating as opposed to radiators?
Yeah, my opinion on that is it's significantly more efficient to run than a radiator. An underfloor heating system is going to run at 40, 45 degrees. 45 is where you want to be really. Your radiators run at 65.
Okay.
So if you imagine you've turned this entire floor into an emitter that operates, takes 45 degree heat through the floor, which gives you something like a 27 degree surface temperature, which isn't uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that 27 degree surface temperature will give you, 20, 21, 22 degrees in your room. And it gives you in your room in every corner.
Yeah, in every corner rather than in specific points where your radiators are.
Yeah, and you know what it's like as as an architect stroke, designing houses. People put radiators in front of, there's a big bay window, let's stick a radiator in there, let's put this there, and then
most of the heat's going out the window.
Yeah, and then the sofa goes up against it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then,
So it doesn't radiate the heat very well.
That's an interesting point actually, because radiators are called radiators, but they don't radiate
heat.
They convect.
Yeah.
So what they do is they heat the air above them, which sets up a little convection current which goes around your room.
Yeah.
Whereas underfloor heating radiates, so it throws heat upwards to about 1.8 metres. So in a vaulted ceiling, in theory, with underfloor heating, you wouldn't actually heat above about 1.8
And you
metres.
wouldn't probably need to either.
Well, you don't need to, it's wasted space, isn't it?
So as a percentage wise, have you got any idea what sort of percentage, so for, I guess something simple for clients just to understand is what percentage maybe underfloor heating is maybe more efficient compared to traditional?
The figure that gets bandied about by the manufacturer is 25%, so it's 25% more efficient to run underfloor heating than a radiator. And so something that I think is important as well, Paul, is if you do put underfloor heating in, you almost future-proof it for heat sources in the future. So there's a lot of talk about hydrogen boilers and gas boilers at the moment. They give you 60 degrees. A radiator needs 60 degrees. Underfloor heating only needs 40, 45.
Right.
So with a heat pump, which everyone's talking about at the moment, that can produce, they're very efficient at 35 degrees.
Well, I'll ask you that question then as we've sort of discussed it now. I mean, obviously, looking towards the future, I think is it 2030 that the government are looking to then phase out gas boilers.
Yep.
And then I guess the options are ground source or air source heat pumps.
Yep.
Now, ground source heat pumps can be quite costly to put in because you're digging lots of holes in the ground and you're laying pipe in the ground. So I think potentially air source heat pumps are probably going to become the thing, or something that's more popular.
Yep.
And maybe is also something that clients maybe should be considering now, because we're only talking 9 years away until effectively that they're going to turn off the gas as such.
Like I say, we don't know where it's going to go, do we? But heat pumps work well as long as everything is designed around the heat pump.
Right.
So if you're underfloor heating with a heat pump, we put more pipe in the floor to give you the same output. But if you've got underfloor heating, this is all in at 200 centres, I think, but if you change to a heat pump now, it would cope with that a lot better than a radiator system would.
Right. Okay. So effectively what you're saying then is, by having a underfloor heating, if things change over to, for instance, an air source heat pump, the underfloor heating will cope a lot better with it than your radiator.
Definitely.
I think this is, unless something else changes in the meantime, there's some new technology that comes out. I think probably air source heat pumps are the direction that everything's going to go. Yeah. It's just a case of, I guess, people may be worried and may already be thinking about that. And I know, speaking to a number of clients that have asked me about underfloor heating, they have asked me, how would that work with an air source heat pump?
There you go.
So,
what I'd say is, if you're thinking you're going down the route of air source heat or ground source heat, then let's know about it up front. Let's just put some more pipe in the floor. Yeah. Because the relative cost of putting an extra 200 metres of pipe in a floor, is a couple of £100. And we always work on the basis that you can always turn your underfloor heating down, but sometimes it's difficult to turn it off.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does that make sense? Makes sense.
So I guess then, coming back to the whole question around, I guess, advantages, disadvantages of underfloor heating. From my side of things, the advantages having underfloor heating is that we've got no radiators on the wall.
Yeah, space is
so placing furniture, whether it's fixed units, whether it's kitchens, anything like that, the room is really a blank canvas because we've got nothing fixed on the wall. Yep. So we haven't got to work around either existing radiators or potentially new radiators. Yep. So that really works for me.
Yeah, the space thing is a big one for my business partner. He always talks about space. You've not got a dirty grey radiator hanging on your wall for someone to hang towels on. Yeah. And
actually I find radiators, I know there's nice radiators out there, but I probably find radiators quite ugly, especially if they are the normal standard white radiators. They're not the prettiest thing to look at. Whereas underfloor heating, it's all tucked away. You can't see anything. It's brilliant.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, so I guess I'll quickly move on then to flowing screed, because I know that's something you do, as well as concrete in floors. So you're not just a one-trick pony. So it's not underfloor heating, and it's not just underfloor heating. Obviously, you are providing screed finishes for extensions, new builds, generally in the residential market, not
Yeah.
the commercial.
Yeah, not really. We, like I say, we install two types of liquid screed. There's a third screed, which is a dry sand cement screed. Personally, I don't think that works very well with underfloor heating. It works, but it's not as good as the other two.
So if you've got a preference on, I know there's a lot of screeds out there, but do you have a preference of a particular brand or screed that you would use?
Personally, I like the calcium sulfate screeds, the anhydrites, but there's a lot of perception around them being A, difficult to tile on, and B, having problems with drying times. The cement-based screeds, people say that you can tile directly onto them and they're dry in effectively 3 days. These fast-drying cement-based screeds. The gypsum-based screeds, typically your drying time can be 1 millimetre a day in good drying conditions,
right,
which is sometimes quite difficult to achieve.
And that doesn't allow for anybody that, such as your builders, that might stack plasterboards on, or
No,
they stack the timber on there, and obviously you've got a wet spot underneath.
Exactly, it doesn't account for the plasterer sticking a big blue tub in the floor and filling it with water and then going having his sandwiches either.
Yeah.
But there are now fast-drying calcium sulfate screeds as well, so
right,
that's also removing a little bit of the concern.
Okay, I think when I had my screed done, I think it was a long floor. Was it long floor, semi floor?
I think yours was. I think, yeah, yours was a long floor.
Yeah, and to be fair, it dried pretty much the next day. You could walk on it.
Yeah, you should be able to walk on them all 24 to 48 hours. But the key thing is tiling or putting down a finished floor covering. But the long floor and the sem floor, both say 2 to 3 weeks before you can adhere a floor finish to them.
Okay, I guess that. So I'll run on to some of the questions that I hear from clients, contractors, things that I guess some of the myths that I've heard.
Yep.
So probably the biggest one that I hear is the floor dries, the tiler comes in, puts his tiles down, and all of a sudden there's tiles popping here, there and everywhere, and you lift them up and you've got this kind of white powdery substance on the back, and instantly it probably gets referred back to you guys to kind of go, oh, there's something wrong with the floor, and I see this quite a lot, and I know we've discussed it. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean it's going away a little bit, but what causes that white powder that people talk about is it's a reaction between calcium sulfate or anhydrite screeds. It's a reaction between those and cement-based tile adhesives. So if you use a cement-based tile adhesive on a gypsum-based, calcium sulfate-based, anhydrite-based floor, you have a reaction at the interface between the two substrates. And what happens is it grows a salt crystal, and the salt crystal forms, and that's where you lose your bond. Okay. The ways around that are that reaction can only happen in the presence of moisture.
Right. So does that mean that the floor's not dry?
Exactly. So if the floor's not dry, or the person who's primed the floor has put too much water in the primer, or if you use a gypsum-based tile adhesive on a gypsum-based floor, then you remove that out of the equation altogether.
Right. Okay, so some of the other questions that I hear is, so one of them would be that I can only have a tile floor. So if I have underfloor heating, I can only have a tile floor because it's the only way that it will sort of allow the heat to come through.
Okay, tiles, stone, they are classed as thermally transparent. So what happens is the heat can come straight through those, not a problem whatsoever. The only floor coverings we want to try to get away from with underfloor heating is carpets and thick natural woods. Other than that, pretty much anything is going. I think the regulation, not the regulation, but the recommendation on carpet is that you keep it to below 1.5 tog. If you can keep the carpet and the underlay to below 1.5
so that's 1.5 tog for both combined.
Yes.
Underlay and carpet.
Yeah.
And again, I know with my floor I had a 12mm thick laminate.
Yep.
And our floor works absolutely brilliant. We get some really great heat through it.
Yep.
All the myths that I hear you know, I haven't experienced as such.
Okay, what else you got on there?
So also got the one that a house never gets warm, and we can't just turn the heating up for, you know, like a radiator system. You know, if it's a bit cold outside, then you can go and you can just turn the radiator up and put them on.
Yeah, that's I suppose there's an element of truth to that. What I would say is with underfloor heating, it's about keeping your house warm. So it's not about heating things up for 2 hours, letting it go cold and heating it for 3 hours when you get back home from work. So get away from that thinking with how you use your radiators. What you need to do is you need to put your thermostat on the wall, which monitors the temperature in the property. Now, all the houses these days that are being built are very well insulated, so they keep the heat that they generate. Golden rule number one, insulate before you generate. So the underfloor heating, if you imagine in this floor, we've probably got 3 cubic meters, that's roughly 7.5 ton of material. We've got to get that warm before that's going to emit heat. So we only want to do that once. So you turn your thermostat up to the temperature you want the room to be. It warms up the screed warms up the house. The last thing you want to do then is turn that off. So what you do is you keep it on, and what it wants to do then is it will take little but often, and it's significantly more effective than to keep it warm than to warm up, cool down, warm up, cool down.
Yeah, which I guess is the same as, in a way, the same as radiators, that they advise you with your boiler to keep it at a constant temperature, not to take it up and down from cold to, because you're just reheating the fabric of the building.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know a few people that have had underfloor heating. You know, they'll turn the underfloor heating right up. They'll come in, it's a cold day, they go onto the thermostat, they keep turning it up because they haven't got the heat, and then the next day it's so hot in the building, and they can't cool it down because again it takes time for it to cool it down. So
exactly, 20 degrees, leave it alone.
So you know, the rule to that is, or the answer to it is just to set your thermostat and keep it constant.
Yeah, I mean this is assuming that the underfloor's been installed correctly.
Yeah.
If the underfloor's been installed correctly, you should get uniform, regular heat at the temperature you want it to be. If the underfloor's been installed badly, so you've got congested areas of pipes and big gaps where there aren't pipes, then you know, you're going to struggle from the off.
And I think this is the difference from what I've seen from the work that you guys do, to, you know, I've seen one or two, I guess, badly prepared underfloor where the pipe work is literally laid in all sorts of fashion. There's no kind of rule as to where it's running, and it's a bit kind of everywhere. Whereas, you know, watching you guys work, you know, it's a bit like watching the A-team. You know, everybody knows what they're doing. That you come in, everybody knows what they need to do, and the pipe work it's almost slightly mesmerising because you're seeing the pipe work that runs around in this really nicely perfect kind of.
We're pedants with our install, but we like things neat, and we know that a neat install equates to no one phoning me up saying it doesn't work.
Yeah. Which I guess also comes back to just good workmanship and actually knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's true, Paul. And when we first started putting in underfloor, and we're going back, what are we now? So I don't know, probably 14 years we've been putting in underfloor heating. And when we first started, underfloor heating installs were awful. They were shocking, and that's why we started doing it, because we thought, you know, we can do better than this.
Yeah.
So we started doing it. But now I'm thankful to say that people seem to be taking a lot more pride in it. So we do see a lot better installs, but we do see some interesting ones.
Not so good. I mean, I guess as well for you, because obviously you've got a background in working with one of the big concrete cement suppliers in your previous life. That obviously having that knowledge and of exactly how the product works, how it moves, to install it, I think probably is a really good benefit for you and for any of the clients that you're doing their job for.
Very much so. Yeah. Like I say, we like to get in, do the underfloor heating in the morning, do the screed in the afternoon. And as I say, we've been my business partner and I. I started in concrete in 1995. That's an awful long time ago. 26 years.
Yeah, so if any clients have got any questions about concrete, screed or anything else, you're the man to talk to.
Yeah, we'd like to think so. Myself or Bev can cover that, I think. Okay, so the burning question everybody wants to know is,
how much does it cost to install underfloor heating, or equally how much does it cost to install maybe just a screed or a concrete floor?
Okay.
I'm guessing that's probably going to be maybe a metre squared price.
Yeah, it's quite variable, because the bigger the area, the cheaper it gets, because of how much we can achieve in a day. So a 40 square metre extension, which we see a lot of at the moment, people knock out the back of the houses, put some bifolds on the back and, you know, knock through. 40 square metre extension, you're going to be something like £2.5 grand probably for your underfloor heating and your screed.
Right.
It's quite tricky to separate them price-wise. 100 square metres, that's probably going to be in the region of about £50 a square metre.
Right, okay.
And so a full-size house, 50 square metres, underfloor heating and screed, about £50 a square metre.
Okay.
Yeah, that could go from 40 to 60 depending on thermostat choices, number of rooms, that sort of thing.
And that's including, I mean, I guess something we've not really touched on, but that's including your manifold and all your bits and pieces.
So manifold sits in a nice central point. So we'll put the manifold in a nice central point. We'll get you a design done of where all the underfloor heating is going to go. Manifold on the wall, pipes in the floor. We'll supply you with the thermostats, supply you with actuators, supply you with the wiring centre if you need them. We normally would, but some people, you know, choose to do that on themselves. So yeah, and then we do all that, pressure test the system and lay the screed.
So just quickly while we're on that subject is, just so clients can understand, you know, how this actually goes together. So just talk us through the actual sort of construction of it. So you know, from for instance the boiler, we're going to have a pipe that's coming down from the boiler.
Yep.
So from that point, so people will generally have their boiler in the house.
Okay. So if you got a boiler, your boiler comes out. You know, your main feed pipe comes out of your boiler, and it will go to a T. Now I'm probably going to get trolled by some plumbers, but your feed pipe comes out of the boiler. It T's. One side will go off to your radiators, the other side of the T will go off to your underfloor heating. Okay. You'll have a zone valve controlling your radiators coming on and a zone valve controlling your underfloor heating coming on, and they'll both terminate in a common return. And
so that will come then down into...
so your feed from that second T will come to your manifold, which will hit a pump that blends the returning water from the manifold down to the temperature that you need it for the underfloor heating. Because your radiators that are elsewhere in the house or upstairs, they'll be running, as we said, 60, 65, but your underfloor heating only wants 40, 45. So that blends the temperature down to go through the
So that's going to run down, so from boiler down to, down through your pipe work, split off into your manifold. Your manifold will do all its magic stuff. Then those pipes then from the manifold will actually be the pipes then that run down into the screed underneath your floor that will go into different zones. So whether that's zones for different rooms, or for instance if it's a particularly big room or it's a big open plan area, you may have 1, 2, 3, 4 zones, however many you need.
One underfloor heating zone at 200mm centres will do 20 square metres. Right. So if you've got a big room, you might need more than one circuit in a room, but they'll come on together.
Yeah, but that's all the stuff that you would talk through with the client and discuss with them. You obviously that would all be designed and laid out for them, so they know exactly how that works and what it's going to get. And then obviously the actual operation, I guess, of the underfloor heating is then just a digital display that's then fixed on the wall. Pretty similar, I guess, to your kind of room thermostats, that you can just turn the floor, the heat up and down temperature-wise, and obviously program for different days and times for it to come on.
Personally, set it at 20 degrees, leave it alone.
Right.
That's how I'd run mine.
Okay. So I guess for any clients out there that are looking for underfloor heating and they're considering it as an option, what would your advice be to them, or have you got any tips or advice you can give them while they're considering?
If you're installing underfloor heating, then if you're getting someone to do it, see if they've got some evidence of installs that they've done before. Then if they have, get a design done for the underfloor heating, and then this is going to sound silly, but once the underfloor heating is installed, make sure it looks like the design. If you want to do it yourself, there are plenty of companies out there that will supply it you, but the only difference between me doing it and you doing it is time, and only you know what your time's worth.
So I hope that's been really interesting content about underfloor heating and screeds, and that's given you some really helpful advice for your projects. Now, if you're interested in underfloor heating and it's something that you're considering, then please get in touch with Simon and his team and have a chat with him, and potentially maybe able to work with you on your project. What I'll do is I'll put Simon's details in the link below so that you can contact him. Equally, if you've got a project in mind, then feel free to get in touch. You can get hold of us via the website at lightboxarchitecture.co.uk. You could drop us an email by info@lightboxarchitecture.co.uk, or simply pick up the phone and give us a call and we can have a chat about your project. Now, we have now got an online booking system, so you can go onto our website, click the red button at the top and book in for one of our 20-minute free online consultations to discuss your projects. So I hope you like the content. Please hit the subscribe button at the bottom. It just helps us with the channel, to grow the channel and keep bringing you some really good content. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.